Masechet Baba Mesia Daf Lamed Aleph. Matzah Chamor Ufara. The Mishnah mentioned if one finds a donkey or a cow and it's grazing on the path, well then that doesn't mean it's lost. The owner knows it's there and left it there to graze and will come back for it later. But in other situations, when you see an animal, then you deem that it is lost. So let's discuss the various criteria. Hagufa kashya. The Mishnah seems self-contradictory. Amart masach chamor ufara ro'in baderech. En zo abeda. Ro'in baderech hu de la havu abeda. Ha rasa baderech vero'a ben akedamim havya abeda. On the one hand, the Mishnah says that if one sees a donkey or a cow that is grazing on the pathway, then it's not lost, because that's normal. It's on the pathway and it's grazing on the grass that's there. That's fine. But if it is grazing, so only if it's grazing on the pathway, then that has two good things that show that that it's in fact not a lost item. That's when it's not a lost item. But what if it's missing one of those two? Let's say it's running on the path, or it's grazing in the middle of a vineyard. Well, then it must be lost, because running along a path, that's not very good for the animal. It's just going to run to nowhere land and get totally lost. So if it's running down the path, that shows that the owner does not know where it is. Also, if it's grazing among the vineyards, that's not good. It's going to get scratched up from all the vines. It may ruin the land also, eat up the grapes and stuff. And so that's another reason to think that the owner does not know where it is. And so there are in those two cases, and certainly if it's both, if it's running in the vineyard, that will be two negatives. So in all those cases, it's a lost item and you have to come and get it and return it to its owner. That's what we can derive from the Resha of the Mishnah. Ema sefa chamor v'chelav hafuchin ufara rasa ben akeramim enzo abeda rasa ben akeramim hudav yabeda harasa baderech vero'a ben akeramim enzo abeda. The Sefa says that if you find a donkey and the wares, that merchandise that it's carrying are flipped over, well, no one's taking care of this animal. Okay, if that's for sure, leave that out on the side. Let's focus on this one. Or a cow that's running in a vineyard. Well, a cow running in the vineyard, that's not very good. It's certainly going to get hurt by running in the vineyard and cause damage in addition. And it's running, and who knows where it's running. How's anyone going to find it? This surely is a lost animal. The owner does not know where it is. So go and return it. We can infer that you only have to return in this case because there's two negatives, running and in a vineyard. But what if it was running on the road? That's not so bad, running on the road. Maybe it wants to run around. It's not going to get hurt running on the road by scratching itself and bumping into things. Or if it's grazing in the vineyard, that's also not so bad. Okay, it's grazing. It won't hurt itself if it's just grazing. And although it seems to be damaging could be damaging the plants, but this is only one negative. And so according to the Sefa, if there's only one negative, then it's not a lost item. The owner knows where it is and he knows it's running in the street and he's okay with it. So now we have a contradiction. Everybody agrees that if you have two positives, that is grazing on the road, then leave it there. If you have two negatives, running and in a vineyard, then it's a lost item. But in the two middle cases, that's where the Resha is Machmir and says you have to go and get it. It's a lost item. And the Sefa says the owner knows about it. It's not a lost item. We're going to see two responses. Amar Abaye. Yagid alav re'ah. This pasuk from Eyob, literally the word re'ah here refers to a loud noise or thunder. In the context, it was referring to when you hear thunder, then it tells about Hashem, that this is a manifestation of God's power. However, the word re'ah also sounds like reya, meaning a friend. And so the friend will reflect upon it here, just simply referring to the two cases and that are similar to each other, and will derive one case from the other as follows. Tana ro'a baderech de lahavya abeda v'uadin lero'a ben akeramim. In fact, if it's grazing on the road, then it's not an Avedah. That's what the Resha says. And the truth is, that's also true in a vineyard. And the Mishnah really only mentioned one case of running in a vineyard. That is lost. But the same thing would be true for running on the road. So really, the Mishnah only wants to make a distinction between one set of differences, the difference between grazing and running. If it's grazing, no matter where it is, that's okay. Then the owner knows that it's grazing and wants it to continue grazing. And if it's running, no matter where it's running, that's bad. It's running, it's going to get farther, it's going to get lost. It's not doing anything productive, it might get hurt. And so running anywhere is no good. Why the Mishnah choose one location for this and one location for that? I don't know. It just mentioned one, and you can figure out the other one, right? That's Yagid Alav Re'ah. Maybe it talked about grazing on the street because maybe that's more likely, whereas running in the vineyard, that's more likely. Whatever the reason is, there's no need to make a further distinction between the place. It's really only the activity that we are focusing on, according to Abaye. Amar le Rava, yagid alav re'o litni kileta v'chol sheken hameta. Rava says that doesn't make sense. If we're supposed to derive one case from the other, then it should tell us, the Mishnah should tell us only the lenient case, and we could figure out by kal vachomer the stringent case, not the way it is now. Litni rasa b'derech dehavya abeda v'kol sheken rasa ben hakeramim. It should have flipped the settings and told us if the animal is running on the road, then that's a lost item. All the more so if it's running in a vineyard, where it's going to get hurt by running in a vineyard. And it should have said, if it's grazing in the vineyard, then it's not a lost item. All the more so if it's grazing on the road, I would have known it's not a lost item. Because grazing in a vineyard, it could cause damage to itself, it can cause damage to the vines. But if you tell me in that case, just leave it, the owner knows about it, then all the more so in the road where it's not going to be causing damage or getting damaged itself. So Rava says, right, if I follow your principle that we can figure out one case from the other, then it should have given us the less obvious case, and I would have figured out the more obvious case, but that's not what the Mishnah says. Ela amar Rava, rasa arasa lakashya ha de'apa legabe dabra ha le'apa gabe mata. Rather, the two cases of running are not a problem. Rather, the first one, where it's talking about the animal running on the path, it's actually where it's heading towards the field, away from the city, and that's why we assume that it's a lost. It's lost because it's running away, and now it's going to get farther and farther away and lost. Whereas the inference that we made from the second clause, the inference was that if it's running on the path, it's not lost property. Oh, that's talking about where it's running towards the city. It's coming closer. So it's running towards home. So then the owner knows where it is and wants it to keep running. So you actually have to look at the direction. Now, Rava makes perfect sense, except that it doesn't say anything like that in the Mishnah. And I think this is a good example of where the Mishnah actually is silent about this. It does leave a gap in between. And by pointing out that gap, and now this creates an opportunity to fill it in, right? What about these other cases? And Rava will use logic. He was a great conceptualist, and say, well, conceptually, what's the point, right? How would you know if something is lost or not? Well, which way is it running? This is a new criteria that the Mishnah didn't say, but the Mishnah's gap leaves open the possibility of putting this in. So whether Rava thought this was the Peshat of the Mishnah or not sure. Right? It could be Abaye was the Peshat of the Mishnah. But Abaye is lessening the criteria by saying there's only one criteria of the action, not where it is, and now Rava is adding more subtleties to the cases. Ro'a ro'a nami lakasha kan ba'avedat kushkufa kan ba'avedat karka. And the two cases of grazing also are not a problem. The inference from the second clause that suggested that grazing in the vineyards is okay, that's regarding the lost item itself. The animal is not considered a lost item because, look, it's grazing in the vineyard, so the animal's benefiting. It's not running, so it's not likely to get hurt. It's just grazing, so that's fine. Whereas the inference from the first halacha, that's more machmir, and says that if it's grazing in the vineyards, then it must be lost, that is referring to the loss to the land, that you have to go in and do something about it, not because the animal is lost and you have to save the animal, but rather because the owner of the land is going to have a loss because the animal is trampling on and eating his vineyard. And that's why you have to step in and get the animal out of there, not to return the animal, but to return the property and make sure that the land does not lose value. So there's no contradiction, right? In fact, the animal is not considered lost, but the land may become lost. כי קטני רואה בדרך להביא אבדה, הרואה בין הכרמים הביאה אבדה באבדת קרקע. וכי קטני רסה בין הכרמים, הביאה אבדה, הרואה בין הכרמים להביא אבדה באבדת תקופה, דרסה בין הכרמים מסכבה, ורואה בין הכרמים למסכבה. And now the Gemara explains what it just said. When the Mishnah says that if it's grazing on the road, that's not considered lost, and we inferred from that if it's grazing in the vineyard, then it is lost. That was from the Resha. That's talking about where we're concerned about the loss to the property. And when it says that if it's running in the vineyard, it is Aveda, but if it's grazing in the vineyard, it's not an Aveda, that's the Sefa, that was talking about the animal itself. Because if it's running in the vineyard, then it's likely to get wounded. But if it's only grazing in the vineyard, then it itself, the animal itself, will not get ruined. So we're not concerned about the animal, but we are concerned to save loss to the vineyard. Now we ask, "V'ro'a ben hakeramim nihi dela misakeba tepuk le mishum abedat karka." Now, a follow-up question. When it is grazing among the vineyard, I understand that the animal itself is not going to get wounded, but still, you can't leave it there. You should definitely have to take it out because of the loss of the land. Now, how can you separate these two issues and say, oh, the Sefer was talking about the animal itself. Oh, it's fine. It's not a lost animal. It's good. It's grazing. But the Resha is talking about the loss to the land. Okay, fine. Very nice for the animal that it won't get wounded, and it's very happy grazing on someone else's land. But you can't leave it there. Surely you have to go and take it out because of the damage to the land itself. So how can you just separate these two issues? And the answer is bidenochri. If the land is owned by a non-Jew, there is no mitzvah of hashavat aveda for a non-Jew. They don't have it on their own law books in Roman law or Persian law. They don't say you have to. And so therefore, if you see someone's animal on a non-Jew's land and the animal is grazing and is very happy, so you assume that it's not a lost animal. The animal is not coming to any harm, so the owner knows it's there. It's trampling on a non-Jew's land. Okay, there's no mitzvah in that case. Hold on. In that case, shouldn't you go and save it for the animal itself? In other words, the non-Jewish farmer will see someone else's animal on its land, and he'll take out a shotgun, and he will go and kill the animal. So shouldn't you go and save the animal on behalf of the animal's owner? And the answer is Batra de Matru v'Hadar Katle. We're talking about a place where you don't have you have a stand your ground law, but first you have to warn. And so the owner did not warn and call out yet, hey, I'm going to kill your sheep. Well, maybe there was a warning. Maybe you showed up at that point and didn't hear the warning, but maybe the warning already happened and the farm owner is about to go and kill it. So shouldn't you go and save it? Ki atruba vela izdaharuba vadai aveda midati. If the farmer already forewarned the owner, and the owner did not heed the warning, then certainly that's a deliberate loss. In other words, that means the owner doesn't care about his animal, that even though it's on someone else's land, and the person says, get that animal out of here or else I'm going to kill it, and he leaves it there, so then he doesn't care about it. He let it go. He doesn't care about this animal, and therefore, a deliberate loss, you do not have to return to the owner. Next, the Mishnah said, if an animal runs away many times, and you find it, you have to return it, even many times. Amar le'ahu midrabanan l'Rava, ema hasheb hadazimna teshibem tere zimne. Now the Mishnah says we learn it from the double language hashev teshivem. But the rabbi asked, a certain rabbi asked Rava, wait a second, we could really only learn two. It only says the verb twice, hashev. That means you have to return it once. Teshivem, oh, it runs away again, return it twice. Third time, already, you give up and say, hey, you have to watch it more carefully. How does the Mishnah learn it from that double language? Amar le hasheb afilu me'apami mashma teshibem en li ela lebeto liginato l'churbato minayin tamud omar teshibem mikom makom hechidame ida mintera peshita ida la mintera amai. So Rava's answer is actually just from the word hasheb, from one word, you will learn that you have to return it many times. Every time it gets lost, there's a new mitzvah, right? You don't say, oh, I prayed yesterday, I don't have to pray today. Every day is another mitzvah to pray. Every time you eat something, you have to say a beracha. Every time this guy loses an item, go and return it. All right, he's negligent, he doesn't know how to keep it. That's his problem. But your issue is, if you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah again, even 100 times you do it, that's all within one word, hashev. So what do we do? You do with the extra word? That means that you should return it. If I only had one word, I would only know I have to return it to his house. How do you know that if I want, I can return it to his garden or to a building that's in ruins? He has a building somewhere else, it's closer by to where I am. I can put it there, and that's considered fulfilling returning. That's why it says, Teshivem, I can return it in any property that he owns, even if he's not actually there. We ask about this answer. What case are we talking about? Is the property protected? It has a fence? Well, then obviously that's considered returning. And if it's not protected, if there's no fence, so just put it in someone's open field, and then it's going to run out again, or someone will come and take it, well then, that's not considered returning. So, why do we have to learn anything about this, and what is it? What's the chidush? Leolam demin terav hakamash malan de la ba'inan da'at be'alim uchter bi elazad amar hakol sirichin da'at be'alim chus me'ashavat aveda shatorah rebeta hashavot harbe. In fact, we're talking about a case where it is fenced in. If it's not fenced in, that's not considered returning. But if it's fenced in, and what's the chidush? That we don't need knowledge of the owner that it was returned. As Rabbi Elazar said, in all circumstances, you need the owner to know about the return of an item. Like if it's a thief who stole something and now he's going to return it, you have to let the owner know, listen, I stole this, I am hereby returning it. However, not so for a lost item, because the Torah says, Hashev tishivem, return it. It's an expansive second word. Return it means in any way, even without him knowing. And therefore, this happens a lot. I get a package to the wrong house, right? I got my neighbor's mail. As long as I put it in a safe place, in the neighbor's mailbox, or on their porch, if it has a gate on it, and it's in a safe place, I don't have to let the neighbor know, oh, this was delivered to the wrong place. I found it. Here I am returning it to you. The neighbor says, I acknowledge it. No, you don't have to do that. You just have to put it in some safe place. Even if he has another house somewhere else, I could put it in that house. As long as it's safe, and eventually he'll come and see it and find it. Shaleach teshalach ema, shaleach hadazimna, teshalach terezimne. Now that we mentioned what we learned from the double language of Hashev teshivem, now we're going to bring a whole list of other examples where there's a double verb as well. And this one is about shiluach hakan, that you have to send away the mother bird before taking either the eggs or the chicks. Why does it say double language, shaleach teshalach? So I might think shaleach means once, teshalach a second time, and beyond that there's no obligation, right? I send it away, I take one egg. I say, that was really good. I send it away, I want another one, I take a second egg. Maybe that's it. I don't have to send it away again after that. Amar le shaleach, but this is not true. Amar le shaleach afilu me'apamim mashma. Rava said, not true. Shaleach, for that one word, means even 100 times. I have to send it away every time I'm going to take something. Tishalach en li ele dvar hareshut edam mitzvah minayin tamud lomar tishlam mikol makom. So what do I need the second verb for? I would only know, I might think that only when it's optional, meaning I'm hungry and I want to eat a scrambled egg, so I'm going to take that egg, that's when I have to send it away. But let's say I want to do a mitzvah with it. Let's say I need a bird for a korban, like a mesorah needs a bird for a korban. If you might have thought if I'm taking it for a korban, then I don't have to send it away. That's why it says teshalach, that you have to send it away no matter what. So this student asked Rava from another case. It says, "Hocheach tochiach et amitecha." You should rebuke your neighbor and don't hold in a grudge. Don't hate him in your heart and cause him sin. Okay, so cheach, that means I have to rebuke the person once. Tochiach means a second time, and then I would think that after that, I have no obligation to say anything to him anymore and let him go and sin and do the wrong thing. Rava says, no, here also, the one word hocheach means even 100 times. Make sure to put him on the right path. Tochiach, what do I learn from the second verb? Enli ela harav letamid. Tamid larav minayin, tamud omar, hocheach tochiach mikom makom. I might think that only a teacher has a right, an obligation to rebuke a student. But how about a student rebuking a teacher? Yes, even that, hocheach tochiach, if it's warranted, the teacher is making a mistake, did something wrong, then the student should tell the teacher in a respectful way, obviously, but still, there's an obligation of rebuke in both directions. Azov ta'azov imo, en li ela be'alav imo, she'en be'alav imo minayin, tamud lomar, azov ta'azov mikom makom. Now, how about this double language, that if you see a donkey, this pasuk from Shemot is talking about the donkey of your enemy, and it's collapsed under its burden, right? Its burden, and the burden fell down, and now the donkey is suffering because it's half on and half off, and it's stumbling, and you see, and it belongs to your enemy, azov ta'azov, help him out. Why do I have the double language? Because I might have thought that only if the owner is there with the animal, then I have to help him out. Ta'azov imo, with him. But what if the owner is not there? I just see the animal, I just see the donkey, so I might think maybe I don't have to help the donkey itself, right? I don't have a favor to the donkey. I don't have an obligation to the animal. I only have an obligation to the owner. The owner's not even here. You might think that I don't have to help out. That means ta'azov, and no matter what. Even if the owner, he went somewhere, he went to find help, or whatever he went, wherever he went, doesn't matter. This is his animal. It will be damaged. It's suffering now, and it might be permanently damaged if I leave it like that. I have to help out. Hakem takim imo. This is the other similar pasuk in Devarim. This is talking about your brother's donkey that is on the side and needs help. And this is usually understood as the opposite of your friend needs help to load the donkey. It's a lot easier to load the donkey with two people because then you can pick up heavy things and also balance it correctly, and it's better for the animal and better for your friend. So here, hakem takim imo, enli ela be'alav imo, shen be'alav imo minayin tamud lomar hakem takim mikol makom. And here the double language teaches us the same thing. I might have thought only if the owner is there, then I have to help him out. But if it was only the donkey there, I see a donkey with some things on the floor. What? I have to go and nobody around. I have to go and put everything in? Yes, the answer is you have to put everything in. I don't know, you drive by someone with unloading a truck, and the trucker is not there. Oh, I better go help. Look, see, he needs to unload the truck. And just go and do it without them there, right? Yes, you have to help him out. Now, question just on this. Why do I need both laws about loading and also unloading, or unloading and also loading? If it only had the case of unloading when the animal is suffering, there you have to help him out because the animal is suffering, and that's Sar Ba'alei Chaim, and also the owner may have permanent loss. If the animal stays like that for too long, it might have a permanent injury. But for loading, where the animal is very happy not to have to be loaded, and there's no permanent damage, it might take the guy a little longer, right? But it's not going to be any monetary loss, and so I might think I don't have to help him in that case, and that's why it teaches me both. Yes, so you have to help with loading as well. Now, if it only told me about the case of loading, this the majority opinion says if you help someone to load, then they have to pay you for your time. So that's when I have to do it, because I'm going to be paid for my time. But unloading, which I'm not paid for, right? If you go and help someone unload and you say, oh, now pay me for my services, he doesn't have to pay you, right? Because you have to get the animal suffering, and so you don't get paid for that. I might think I don't have to agree to help you for free, and therefore I don't have to help. That's what you might have thought. And the answer is that's not true. You have to help in both cases. Happens to be that if you're loading, then you can ask for wages. If you're unloading, then you have to do it for free. But either way, you're obligated to stop whatever else you're doing and help out your friend or enemy. ורבי שמעון אמר אף תאינה בחינם מעיקה למעמד לרבי שמעון למסיימי כראה. According to Rabbi Shimon, he thinks that even loading has to be done for free. You can't ask for wages for that. You have to help him and do it as a favor. So in that case, there's no difference. So why is it mentioned both cases? And the answer is, according to Rabbi Shimon, it's not clear from the Pisukim that one is about loading and one is about unloading. They both talk about helping your friend. And so I might have thought if I had only one pasuk that the one of them is referring to unloading only, and that's all I have to do, but I don't have to load it. And therefore, I need both of them to tell me that I have to help out both for loading and for unloading, even though I'm not going to get paid for them, and I have to do that whether the owner is there or not. Now we ask, why do we need these two cases about helping a person's animal load and unload, and I also need the law regarding a lost item, hashiv teshivem? Isn't it conceptually basically the same thing if I have to prevent my friend from having a loss? What's the difference if it's a loss of an animal that strayed and he doesn't know where it is, or an animal that's right here but is suffering under a load and needs help? Either way, the point is I have to help my friend and prevent him from having a loss occur to him. I can learn one from the other. And the answer is, I need both, because if it only talked about the cases, the two cases of helping an animal, there you have suffering to the animal. It's suffering if it's holding a load and it's unsteady and it's falling, it's very painful. And even loading, if you're loading with one person, you put more on one side and then more on the other side, and the animal's uncomfortable in the meantime, it helps the animal too to load it together with someone, and also the suffering of the person. It's very difficult to unload or load by himself. So I might think that over there in the case of animals, I have to help the guy out. But if it's a lost item, well, yeah, there you only have one factor of the suffering of the owner, that he lost his item and he doesn't know where it is. But the suffering of the item itself, there is not. If it's an inanimate object, he lost his money, his wallet, his bowl, so that doesn't care. And even the animal doesn't care to be lost, right? Animal that's roaming free in the middle of a vineyard, he's very happy to be running around, and he's not thinking, where's my master, right? How am I ever going to get home? So the animal doesn't care, only the master cares. So I might think I only have to help when the animal is suffering. But if the animal's not suffering, then I don't have to return it. So that's why I need the law of returning items. If I only had the law of returning a lost item, that's because the owner is not with it. By definition, it's lost. The owner doesn't know where it is. If I don't help him out, then he's never gonna find it by himself, or it may take him a long time to find it, but he's not likely to find it very soon. Whereas in these two cases, the owner is with it. The owner knows that his animal needs help, is suffering under a load, or needs to be loaded up. And so since the owner is there, the owner will take care of it one way or another, right? It might take him longer. He might struggle a little more. He might have to go and find someone to hire, to help, whatever it is. But the animal's not going to be totally lost forever. The owner will take care of it. So I might have thought, I don't have to involve myself if the owner himself is there and is responsible. And therefore, that law comes to teach us, not true. You have to help your friend, whether he doesn't know where his animal is and may never find it, and if he knows where it is and he can figure out something, still, you're there, you need to help him. The pasuk says that hamakeh, a murderer, has to get the death penalty. Now, if I only had one of these verbs, I would only know that it's the designated death penalty, which is for a murderer decapitation. So why do I need the second verb? Meinayin she'im ata yachol lamito b'mita ketuvah bo she'ata rashai lamito b'chol mita she'ata yachol lehamito tamud omar mot yumat mikol makom. How do I know that if I cannot give him capital punishment with the normal designated form of decapitation, how do you know that we can use any other form of execution? For example, if the executioner does not have the ability to do that form, or maybe if the guy's running away and you can't decapitate him, but you can shoot him with an arrow and kill him that way, so that you give him capital punishment in some other way. So that's why it says the double language mot and yumat. Hakeh, takeh. Regarding idolatrous city, you have to strike the inhabitants. Double language. Enli ela b'hakah ketubah behen. I only know the normal way, which is also decapitation. Menayin she'im ata yachol lamitan b'hakah ketubah behen she'ata rashai la'akotam b'chol hakah she'ata yachol tamod omar hakeh takeh mikol makom. If you're not able to decapitate the guilty people in that city, then you can kill them in a different way. I know that from the double language. Hashem tashib. Enli ela she mishkeno b'rshut bet din. Mishkeno shelo b'rshut bet din minayin. Tamod omar Hashem tashib mikol makom. This is pasuk in Devarim, that if you take a night garment from a person as a pledge, he's a poor person, and that's all he has, you have to give it back to him. As the sun goes down, every sunset, go give him back his pajamas, let him sleep in it. In the morning, come get it, take it from him again. Now, even though that's not much of a pledge because he's going to get it every night, still, it's a constant reminder that he has to pay you. But you have to be sensitive just to the humanity of the person, that otherwise is going to be cold at night. So how do you know that? So I would, if I only had one verb, I would know that if this was an official thing that the court took this item because he didn't pay, then I have to return it every night. But what if it was not outside of court? I just went and I took this collateral myself, but not with the court. Do I still have to go return it every night? And the answer is yes, because of the double verb. Chabol tachbol enli elash mishkeno b'rshut mishkeno shelo b'rshut minayin tamod omar chabol tachbol mikol makom. This is another pasuk in Devarim that sounds like it says the same thing. That if I take collateral from someone, I have to restore it to him until the sun sets. This is the pasuk in Shemot. First one was Devarim, this one is Shemot. Here it says ad bo hashemesh. We'll see that will make actually a difference. That's talking about a daytime garment. Anyway, if I take it from him, I have to give it back to him. I only know that that's true if it was taken from him as collateral by the court, that the court decreed you have to give him this item, and maybe the court even sent a messenger to go and collect the item. But if I did it outside the court, I went and took it myself, how do you know that I'm still obligated to give it back to him each day? Because it says the double language. Why do I need both the pasuk in Devarim and the one in Shemot? Because the one in Shemot is talking about a daytime garment. That's why it says ad bo hashemesh. Give it to him, return it to him until the sun sets, so he can use it all day, and then every night I'll take it for myself. Whereas the one in Devarim says ke bo hashemesh, means that I can take it during the day, but I have to return it to him at sunset, because that's a night garment. Patoach tiftach enli ela la'aniyeh irecha la'aniyeh ir acheret minayin tamod omar patoach tiftach mikom makom. Pasuk regarding charity says, surely open your hand and give to the poor. Why do I need a double language? I might think I only have to give to the poor people within my city. But if there's poor people elsewhere, how do I know I have to help them out also? From the double language, no matter where they are. Naton titen, enli ela matana beruba, matana moetet minayin, tamudoman naton titen mikol makom. The double language of give, also the same context, to give to your brother, I might only think I have to give if it's a large gift. But what about a small gift? Do I still have to give? In other words, let's say my friend, he needs surgery. He needs $10,000. I can't afford $10,000. I might think I don't have to give him anything at all. So the answer is no. Even if it's a small gift, I can only give him $200. Okay, so that's it'll add up, and other people will help him too. So don't say because I can't help him totally, I don't have to help him at all. Even a small gift is obligated. Ha'anek ta'anik, en li ela shenitbarech habayit biglalo ma'anikin, lo nitbarech habayit biglalo minayin, Talmud lomad ha'anek ta'anik mikol makom. In Eved Ivri, when he goes free, he gets a severance package. You have to give him a lot from your flock, from grain, from wine, right? Because Hashem has blessed you because of him. This guy came onto your farm and he helped out, and assuming that your farm was blessed by him, by his being there, so he has a share. Yes, he's a slave. He didn't get paid the whole time, but he did work and he improved everything that you have. So therefore, it's fitting that you should give him a nice severance package from all the things that Hashem has blessed you with. Right? Hashem is the one that gives you the blessing, and therefore don't be stingy. Now, I might think that I only have to give a severance to my slave if my house was blessed and the profits went up since he got here. Then I give him a severance. But what if not? What if we had 6 bad years the whole time he was here and everything was a loss? Do I still have to give him? Yes. That's why it says a double language, ha'anek ta'anik. ורבי אלעזר בן עזריה דאמר נתברך הבית בגללו מעניקין לו, לא נתברך הבית בגללו אין מעניקין לו, תעניק למה לי? דברי התורה כלשון בני האדם. However, there's another opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. He says that you take that reason in the Torah literally, and only if the household was blessed and the profits went up because of the slave, then you have to give him a severance. But if not, then you don't have to give him a severance. So what would he do with the double language? And he would follow, right, the methodology of Rabbi Ishmael that says the Torah speaks in normal human language and it's normal grammar to use a double verb just for emphasis. But you don't have to learn anything, any new halacha from it. Have ta'avitenu. You should lend to a person, and he uses a double language. This is the same context in Devarim. אין לי אלא שאין לו ואינו לא רוצה להתפרנס. אמר החמנה, תן לו דרך הלוואה. יש לו ואינו רוצה להתפרנס מניין. תלמד לומר, תביטנו מכל מקום. If I had only one verb, I might think that a person who is poor, he has no provisions for himself, but he's too proud to take from the charity. So then Torah says, you know what? Give it to him as a loan, and then you'll forgive the loan, but it'll save his dignity, because everybody takes a loan once in a while. Even rich people take loans. And so he'll feel good that he's taking a loan. And, right, don't say, well, he doesn't want a gift, he refuses, so I don't have to help him. No, find a way to preserve his dignity and give it as a loan. I might think only in that case I have to give it. What if there's a person who has money? He's very wealthy, but he's so stingy that he won't use any of his own money. He'd rather starve out in the street rather than spend money. So do I have to deal with him? And the answer is yes. Even him, he's not. You have to go and say, you know what? I know you don't want to spend your own money, and you have $1 billion, but you know what? I'll lend you money, and then he'll be okay, because he's not right. He'll take that money because it's just a loan, so it's still within his dignity. But he won't take a gift, and he won't use his own money. So yes, the double language says you have to help him also. He has a psychological problem. He's so stingy, he's gonna starve himself to death. Okay, that's a separate problem, but still help him by giving him a loan. And afterwards, after he dies, you can collect the loan back from his estate. Rabbi Shimon da'amar yesh lo ve'eno raseh להתפרנס, אין נזקקין לו, תביטנו למali, דברי התורה כשומע בני אדם. However, Rabbi Shimon, for that guy, disagrees, and he says, if someone is wealthy and he just refuses to support himself from his own money, he's just so stingy, it's not our problem. You don't have to take from charity funds. There's people that actually need the money. We don't have to take charity funds and give it to him. So according to the Bishimon, why the double language of ta'avitenu? You only have to lend to an actual poor person, not to a rich person. And he'll say also, the double language, we don't learn anything from it. The next part of the Mishnah teaches, Haya batel min hasela, lo yomar lo ten li sela, en noten lo secharo kepoel. If the finder has a high-paying job, he makes $1,000 an hour, he cannot go to the person that lost the item and say, listen, it took me an hour to return your animal, so give me $1,000. Rather, the owner of the lost object pays him as a regular worker, which sounds like just a low amount, maybe the standard amount for a day labor, kind of a minimum wage amount. Now, to explain this, we learn from a baraita, tanan, or maybe it should be tanya, because it's a baraita that's found in Tosefta, it's not in Mishnah. Noten lo secharo kepoel batel explains, when it says you give him as a laborer, doesn't mean as a day laborer like minimum wage, but rather as an idle laborer. What does that mean? We pay him as someone who is not doing that job that he is taking a break from. So in our case of the $1,000 lawyer, yeah, he gets $1,000 an hour, but he's working really hard, high stress, right? And high talent. That's why he's getting paid that much. How much would you give him? How much, if you offered him, would he take to not do that high stress job, to do a pretty easy job of returning a lost goat? Hey, instead of being in a courtroom high stress, you can take a drive out to a farm and return a goat. So the lawyer might say, oh, that sounds like a vacation. You know what? Just give me $50 for the hour, and I'll go and I'll take care of your goat and get it home, right? And I'll take a break from the more difficult job that I was getting paid more from. So that's but you do have to pay him something. You have to pay him the difference of what he would take to not do his very difficult job in order to spend time doing this easier job. Last part of the Mishnah says, if there is a court, the finder can go to the court and say, listen, I'll return this guy's item on condition that he pays me $1,000 an hour that I'm going to lose out by not going to the office during that hour. And he can do that. Now, Isur v'Rav Safra. Abid iska behadeh hadadeh. Azar Rav Safra pelagle bela da'ateh di Isur ba'peh debetre. We're going to see a story that's related to this halacha about a person named Isur and Rav Safra. They were partners together in some business, and they made some money. And now Rav Safra wants to separate his share of the merchandise that they made, and so he did it without the knowledge of Isur, and he did it in front of two witnesses. Right here, you see, I'm taking this, he's taking that, it's fair. Good. Now, Rav Safra came before Rabba bar Rav Huna to ratify. This is what I did. Amar le zil, aiti tilata diflagat kamaihu. And Rabba says, well, go bring me the three people that saw you dissolve this partnership. In other words, two is not enough. As witnesses, you need three. You need a betin. Inameh or bring two of the three, and the two will testify that there were three people there. Or bring two people, none of them were the judges, but they can testify that you split it in front of three judges. No matter one way or another, you have to bring me either the three people or evidence that there were three people there. Doing it in front of a witness is not enough. You need three people as a bet din. Rav Safra asked, Amar le mina lacha, how do you know that you need three people to divide a partnership? Amar le ditnan, im yesh betin matne bifnehem. Yesh en sham betin bifne mi yatne shelo kodem. He says, I learned it from this Mishnah. If there is a betin, then he can make a condition in front of the betin and says, listen, I'm willing to return this guy's lost property, so he's getting something out of the deal, but I also want to get something out of the deal, which is my $1,000, because that's an hour of work on my time. And so if there's a bet-in, then he can do that. So we're comparing the two cases, that just like if we have all this merchandise and you want to split it, and the other guy is not there, you have to do it in front of a bet-in. So too, this is also kind of like splitting something that we own together. You know, you're getting something, your lost item back. I want to get something out of it also, an equal amount not an equal amount, but an amount that makes my time worthwhile. And so I need a bet-in if you need a bet-in for the case of the lost item, for a court to decide how much I'm going to get and what you're going to get and what you have to pay, then so also we should need it for a partnership. And if there's no bet-in, then my time takes precedence. I say, listen, I don't have time to return your $100 goat. I have a $1,000 an hour job to get to, and then my job will take precedence. In other words, you can't do it. If there's no court there, then there's no possibility of making such a stipulation. אמר לה, מי דמה הטעם דמפיק ממונה מהי ומוטיב להי, בעינן בית דין, אבל הכא דידי שקלי, גילוי מילתא בעלמא הוא בתרי סגי לרב ספרא, whoever tells Rabbah says, no, these cases are different. In the case of a lost item, that's where the finder wants to extract money from the person that lost the item. That's why there you need a bet din. But in my case of the partnership, right, I'm taking my own stuff. It says he's taking his own stuff. He was referring to himself in the third person. And therefore, this is only revealing the matter. I'm just disclosing. It's a disclosure. I have a right to take what's mine. It's already mine. It just happens to be in a partnership. I'm simply disclosing in front of two people, listen, you're here to testify that these things are mine, those things are his, and therefore it should be sufficient. Te'eda, Rav Safra adds another proof from a Mishnah in Ketubot. Zitnan, almana mocheret shelo bifnei bet din. If a man dies, then his estate will go to heirs, but the almana, the widow, gets a ketuvah payout, either one lump sum payout or she'll be sustained from the estate. So that's kind of a partnership. And it says there that the almana, she can go and sell some property in order to pay for her sustenance without the bet din. Why? Because that's the same as a partnership, isn't it? And you don't need a bet din to take what's yours. And so you see, this is a proof that what I did is okay, and I could do it in front of two people as witnesses, and I don't need a bet din. Amar leBaye v'lav mitmar ala. Amar v'seh bar min Yomi. Amar Nachman almana ena siricha bet din shel mumchin, aval siricha bet din shel hedjot. But that proof is not good, Abaye says, because of what Rav Nachman said about that Mishnah, that when the Mishnah says that an almanah does not need a bet din, it means a bet din of experts. She doesn't have to go to an expert bet din in order to sell the property, but she does have to go to some bet din, even if it's an ad hoc bet din of layman, who comes and authorizes the sale of this, that she still need a bet din. She can't do it on her own, and she cannot do it in front of two witnesses. Therefore, that's why Rabbah Bar Rav Huna required that just like she cannot sell her share of what she has in the estate, unless there's a bet din, so too Rav Safra needed to have a bet din there, and that's why he required there to be three people in that case. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.